welcome to today's whole body movement class. The props suggested are one blanket and 2 blocks if you have it, and something to sit on. It could be a pillow or a block or a blanket, anything to raise your hips a little bit higher. So I'm sitting on a bolster, and we do this just so you can let your hips relax a little bit, because we're starting today's class seated. You can have your legs crossed like I have, or straight out in front of you, or even wide legs. Totally your call how you want to start the class. But just raising the hips a little bit higher helps your hips and legs relax, which makes it easier to sit for longer periods of time. So just settling in, stacking shoulders over hips, letting your neck relax and your shoulders relax so they're nice and heavy. Closing your eyes if you wish. Just taking a few moments here to settle in for the class. It might be the first time today that you stop or sit still. Just letting your breath soften. And even out. Scanning your body, starting with your feet, where they're making contact with the floor. Feeling the surface of your mat or the floor, wherever your feet are touching. Arms are nice and relaxed. And if your palms are down, just feeling where they're making contact, maybe with your legs or wherever they're resting. And then checking in, just noticing your belly. If you're holding tight, see if you can let your belly relax. The more we can let the belly relax, the more we create space for the diaphragm to move, the ribs to move, and for the lungs to expand. And moving your awareness to your breath. Just noticing as the air moves in through your nose, your lungs and ribs expand, maybe your shoulders lift slightly. And then the chest and the ribs settle back down as you exhale. Keeping your normal breathing pattern, the only thing that we're going to change slightly is the exhale. Just trying to extend it a little bit longer than you normally would. And each time you exhale, seeing if you can let your shoulders relax a little bit more. And then returning completely to your normal breath. Dropping your chin down towards your chest. So we're elongating the muscles at the back of your neck, maybe into your shoulders. Opening your eyes as you lift your chin up towards the ceiling. So we're just stretching out the front of your neck. Holding here, maybe moving your jaw from side to side or opening the jaw and closing, seeing how that changes the stretch in front of your neck. And then lower your head back to neutral. Rotating your head, turning towards the left shoulder. So just moving gently, not forcing. Only turning your head as far as it's comfortable. Rotating over towards the right shoulder. And back to center. So just a gentle nodding motion, nodding yes, yes. Not moving through the full range, maybe 2/3 of the way. Back to neutral and then side to side in a no motion. And back to center. Tipping the left ear over towards your shoulder. Letting the right shoulder be as heavy as possible, just feeling the stretch, maybe from the bottom of your ear down into your shoulder. Lifting up, tilting over to the right. And lifting back up. Bringing the arms in, out to the sides. We're lifting all the way up to the ceiling. And then turning the palms down as the arms come down, imagining, or reality, the air is very thick and heavy with humidity today. Lifting the arms up as we inhale, so we're synchronizing breath and movement. Exhaling as your arms come down. Inhaling up. Exhaling down. And we're going to speed up the lift portion and slow down the descent. So breathing in a little bit quicker in, exhaling very slowly out, exaggerating the exhale. Quick lift in, exhaling slowly out. You're going to go with your own rhythm here, so if you're faster or slower than me, that's totally fine. You just want the exhale to be slower. A couple more times at your own time. And then relaxing your arms down, just returning to your normal breath. We're circling the arms, imagining you're hugging around a giant tree, so rounding the back, holding here, keeping the shoulders nice and relaxed as you do this. So we're stretching out the shoulder blades, pulling them apart. Bringing your hands into fists, pulling them down towards your sides, moving your elbows back behind you, but keeping your ribs lined up over so we're not popping the ribs as we pull back. Keeping your ribs over your hips. Doing that again, rounding, hugging the tree. And even drop your chin down towards your chest. Hands into fists, pull back. Pulling your elbows back behind you. So we're stretching out the front of the shoulder here. One more time, wrapping around the tree. Shoulders are nice and relaxed, even though our arms are working. Hands into fists, pulling elbows back. And then shake it out. Hugging your elbows to start. So you're hugging your elbows into your sides, palms up. So your elbows are bent, palms up. Then we're going to rotate the arms, bringing your pinkies closer together. They don't have to touch. And then rotating out, so thumbs out to the sides, hugging your elbows in. Without forcing it, again, keeping your shoulders relaxed. Then straighten the arms out into a wide shape. And then drawing the thumbs back behind, open the arms a little bit wider. Again, keeping your ribs down. Back to a wide shape. Pulling your elbows down into your sides. Pinkies come together. Thumbs out, so it's like you're almost out of the serving tray, out to the sides. Pushing your arms up, reaching out into a wide shape. Bringing the arms a little bit wider, and this time seeing if you can squeeze your shoulder blades together at the same time. Keeping your shoulders down. Back to a wide shape. Pulling your elbows into your sides. Pinky fingers together, so a small movement in towards the center. Thumbs out to the side. And then relax your arms. Shake it out. Imagining you have water on your fingers, and we're just flicking the water off. We're going to spend a bit of time on hands and knees today. So we'll just warm up the wrists a little bit. We're elbows out to the sides, fingers towards each other. And then let your fingers hang loose to the floor. So we're bending at the top of the wrist, placing the top of your wrist into your armpits. Shoulders relaxed and a gentle pressure down with your elbows, only as much as is comfortable for your wrists and forearms. Just stretching out the top of the wrist. Maybe you feel it a bit in your forearms. And then shake it out. So just removing whatever pillow or bolster, if you're sitting on anything, placing that over to the side. We're coming over onto hands and knees in tabletop. What we're looking for is knees directly underneath your hips and your hands underneath your shoulders. Fingers are spread wide. So we're just going to hang nice and loose here, letting the shoulders relax. Almost like we're dumping into the shoulders. Belly drops down to the floor. Everything is nice and loose. Tops of the feet are down on the mat. Then we're going to push into the opposite movement. So pushing into the heels of your hands. We're trying to push the chest away from the mat, lifting your shoulders and spine up towards the ceiling. So you're trying to get your face as far away from the mat as possible. We're pushing away. Now we're right in the shoulders. They're doing all the work here. Small movement, rotating the inside of your elbows towards the front of the room in front of you. This is building stability in the shoulders here. And then relax. So just let everything hang nice and loose. We'll do that one more time. Everything's nice and loose. Then push away from the mat, spreading your shoulder blades wide. Inside of your elbows turns towards the front of the room. So a slight movement like you're rolling your bicep out to the side. And this is what we want to practice as much as possible when we're in table or down dog. Anything where our arms are supporting us, this is when our shoulders are the most stable. Sit back in child's pose, take a break, stretching your arms as far in front of you as you can, and letting your head drop down towards your mat. Taking a big breath in, expanding the ribs in the back of your chest. Exhaling out, maybe sinking a little bit closer to the floor, letting your chest relax on your thighs. This is one of the resting poses. They're all suggested. You can rest however you want, but child's pose is one, table is one. Some people find downward dog restful, but it's a lot of work, so it's up to you. But anytime through the class, if you want to take a break, even sitting back on your heels and lifting up, take a break whenever you need to and rejoin the class when you're ready. So we're lifting back up to table, resettling knees underneath your hips, hands underneath your shoulders. So we're going to move into cat-cow. So again, letting the belly hang loose, even letting your abdomen relax as much as possible so you're not holding your abdomen tight. Then pushing away from the mat like we did a moment ago, but we're rounding the back as much as you can. So lifting your spine up, even tucking the tailbone, dropping your chin down towards your chest. And then back to cow. So arching the spine, Belly drops, hips are lifted. And then lifting back up, rounding the upper back. Whole spine into a C shape. And then back to neutral. So neutral is going to be a little bit different for everybody, but it's somewhere in between those two movements. Sitting back on your heels, reaching again, arms or hands as far forward as you can, so stretching long through the arms. Then lifting up as if we were going back to table, but dropping your hips down. So arching the spine, arms are straight. So we're moving into upward dog. So we're still pushing hands into the floor, trying to lift as far away from your mat as possible. Push back to child. So we're just going to move back and forth from those, between those two positions. So child's pose, and then pulling forward, dropping your hips, lifting the chest high so we're not dumping into the shoulders, we're lifting up, pushing into the floor. One more time each way, sitting back in child's pose. Back to upward dog, lifting up. Curling your toes under. So big lift here, so you're pushing into your hands, lifting your hips. We're going to push into your first downward dog. So knees are bent, heels are lifted. Making it big V shape with the body here. Just pedaling your feet, so lifting one heel and the other. Moving slowly, we're stretching out the back of the legs. And move your hips from side to side if that feels good. And then looking up towards your hands so we know where we're going. Then we're walking the feet up towards your hands. So we're going to finish in a forward fold. Knees are bent, resting your chest on your thighs. So just letting your head and neck hang nice and heavy. Walking your hands up your shins. So we're moving slowly, back is rounded, we're rolling up to standing. And then we finish in Tadasana. Maybe feeling a little bit warm already. You've done lots of movement. So we'll move into half sun salutations. So sweeping the arms up towards the ceiling. We're hinging at the waist, so keeping the back flat, like you're going to dive off the diving board. We're only diving halfway down, making a number 7 shape, bringing your hands to your shins. So back is flat. We're keeping the back of the neck long. So chin is slightly tucked. We're looking at the floor. Sweeping your arms out to your sides. Lifting all the way back up to standing, lifting your arms up towards the ceiling. So moving back and forth between those two positions. Sweeping the arms wide, we're hinging at the waist, keeping the back flat. Slight bend in the knees. Looking down at the floor, so the muscles are long in the back of your neck. Arms sweep out to the sides, lifting all the way up. Gonna go a little bit further this time. So dropping the arms out to the sides, diving forward, bend your knees as much as you need to bring your fingertips to the floor. And then bending your knees a little bit further to plant your hands on the floor. We're gonna step back with the right foot. Step back with the left, so we finish in plank. Looking for a nice straight line from the tops of the shoulders down to your heels. Same thing as when we did table. Arms are nice and straight. We're pushing our chest away from the mat, spreading your shoulder blades wide. Drop your knees to the floor. And then sit back in child's pose. Just letting the breath settle back down. Reaching the fingertips forward, so we're stretching the arms nice and long. And then we're lifting back up to table. So setting up knees and hands. Back is neutral. We're curling the toes under. So it's a very small movement that we're doing here. Again, pushing the chest away from your mat. And then lifting your knees an inch off the floor. So they're just hovering. Making sure you're not holding your breath. You're still breathing through this. Drop your knees down. Take a break. Pushing your hands into the floor, holding your chest away from the mat, hover your knees. Big breath in. Big breath out. Lift your hips, push back to downward dog. So we're just building on the series that we did earlier when we were moving from child's pose to upward dog. Now we're moving from down dog to up dog. So first, lifting. So your heels are lifted. We're lifting the upper back up towards the ceiling, rounding the back. We're pulling forward to plank. And then dropping the hips down, keeping the arms nice and straight, tops of the feet down on the mat. Curling the toes under, lifting the hips up, pushing back to downward dog. Only doing that twice. A big, big movement, taking the spine through its full range of motion. Pulling forward to plank. Dropping the hips. Keeping the chest lifted. And then we're just sitting back, pushing back to child's pose. Big breath in again, spreading the ribs wide, expanding the chest. Letting your chest resettle as we breathe out. Just moving the hands, we're walking them back towards your knees. So you're coming back to sit on your heels. We're only here for a second if this is uncomfortable, and it often is. So we're just gonna plant your hands right in front of you on either side of your knees, lifting enough that you can curl your toes under. Then we're lifting the knees. So now you're up on the balls of your feet in a low squat. Just holding here for a second. Trying as much as you can to keep your ankles parallel to each other. You're going to use your fingertips here to lift your hips first. Keeping your ankles or your heels up. Then heels down to the mat. Walking your hands up your legs. And coming back up to stand. Whew. Shaking it out however you need to. Swinging your arms back and forth, or doing big circles with your arms, whatever comes naturally. Hands on your hips. You're going to take a big step forward with the right foot. So you want to check in that your feet, that it's not like you're walking on a tight rope. We want a little bit of space that will help with the stability. So walking your left foot a little bit out to the left side of your mat, right side, or right foot a little bit out to the right side. That's going to make this pose quite a bit more stable instead of trying to be on the same line with your feet. We're lifting the back heel and bending the front knee. So this is our warrior one, lifting your arms straight out in front. Then we're going to straighten both legs, arms come down beside you. So both legs are straight, but your back heel is still up off the floor. Then we're going to lower down, so both knees are bent. We want to keep our shoulders stacked over your hips. So we have a straight line from shoulders, hips, down to your knee. Doesn't matter how far down you go. And then lifting back up, both legs are straight. Do that one more time. Arms straight out in front of you. Lowering down. Try not to hold your breath, which is very easy to do when we're in a challenging pose. Just keep breathing. And then lift back up. We're going to rotate towards the side of the mat. So now your legs are wide. You want to bring your heels in, toes out. And how far out your feet go, your toes, that's up to you. It's based on comfort. Bending your knees, moving into goddess pose. So we want to sit the hips back slightly, knees out to the sides. Where you have your arms to help with balance, can be out to the front. This is up to you what you want to do with your arms. You can keep them on your hips even, but we're just shifting from one side to the other. And as you shift to one side, the opposite leg will straighten. Shift to the other side, leg straight. So we're just moving, shifting, trying to keep the hips at the same level. Lots of work here. Building strength in your legs and hips. Also really great ankle work. Couple more times on each side. Legs are probably shaking. That's totally normal and it's good. And then holding in center. Pushing your heels into the floor as you lift back up, straighten your legs. We're going to rotate towards the back of your mat. So we're going to do the same thing with warrior one that we did on the other leg. So we're creating a bit of space. Back heel is lifted. Arms come straight out as you lower down. Checking in, nice straight line, shoulders stacked over hips, over that bottom knee. Lifting up, straight legs. And then arms up, lower down. Straight legs, lift up. Last time, arms out, lower down. Woo. Awesome work. Push your heels down as you lift up. We're going to rotate back towards the side of the mat. Back into goddess. So toes come out to the sides, heels are in. Hips shift back slightly as your knees come out to the sides. Again, placing your arms wherever you want for balance. We're just going to hold here in goddess, but lift. Even if it's half an inch, quarter of an inch, we're lifting that right heel up off the floor. Lower it down, lift the left heel. You can also hang onto a chair or a wall, lift the right heel. And down, lift the left heel. And down. One big move, aiming for a slight lift of both heels. And if it doesn't work, don't worry about it. Just go back to one at a time. Lower your heels. Shift back to the front of your mat, so we're rotating all the way around. Push off the back foot to come back to stand at the top of your mat. And pedal your feet to shake it out. Awesome. So before we start the next series, I will offer a blanket, if you wish, to place just across roughly the center of your mat, only if you have sensitive knees or if you like something under your knees, because we're going to do a little bit of work on the floor. So sometimes it's nice to have something under your knees. So we're just starting in Tadasana. Feet are about hip width apart. Sorry, and I forgot the 2 blocks. So if you have 2 blocks, great. If you don't, that's fine. We're just going to use fingertips. Arms come straight out and up towards the ceiling. We're hinging at the waist. Diving down into forward fold. Bending your knees as much as you need to, so your fingertips touch the floor. Then we're lowering the hips all the way down. So you're sitting on the back of your heels, and your heels lift up off the floor. So we're back in that low squat. We're just going to move back and forth between those 2 positions. So lifting the hips, heels come down to the mat. Lower the hips, heels come up. So as we're moving between these 2 positions, lifting your hips, lower heels, so we're back in the forward fold. Lower the hips as we're moving, trying to keep your ankles parallel to each other. So your ankles don't drop out to the sides. Lift your hips, lower your heels. lower your hips, lift your heels. Lift hips, lower heels. Lower your hips, lift your heels, and hold here. So this is where you can use blocks if you wish, or we're just using our hands on the floor. We're going to tip your knees forward so they touch the floor. So we're just bringing your knees down to the floor, then lifting your knees. So we're moving back and forth between those two positions now. Knees down, knees up. So we're really stretching into the bottom of your feet right now. Knees down, knees up. Knees down, knees up, and then knees down, and we hold here. Backing up, I've ended up a bit off my mat, so I'm just going to back up a little bit. So I'm back on my mat. Then your feet, tops of your feet come down onto the mat. Lifting up, so now we're standing on our knees. This is where you, if you want, you can have some cushioning under your knees if that's more comfortable. So again, we're back, we keep that straight line between knees, hips, and shoulders, where you place your arms. So we're really pushing the tops of the feet into the mat and leaning back, keeping that straight line. So big quad stretch here. You can have your arms straight out in front or out to the sides, but that adds weight, it adds load. So that's up to you. Lift back up, take a break. Anchoring in, so tops of the feet push down as you lean back. Lifting the arms if you wish. Not holding your breath. And lift back up. So I'm going to turn to face you, just so it's easier to see me. If you want to turn as well, that's up to you. So we're keeping the right knee on the floor. The left leg, we're bringing it out to the side. So moving into a bit more hip work here. But this, it has a lot of experimentation with it. So you're going to check in with how this feels with your hip. If you bring your foot a little bit more towards center or even more out to the side. So we're just shifting forward and then shifting back. So as you shift back, you're pushing that left heel into the floor. Really working in the hips here, pushing back. Pushing forward, and then pushing back. Now we're going to bring in a little bit more activity to the muscles here. So you're going to pull, your front foot is not going to move, but we're pulling on the floor as if we want it to, but it's stuck to the floor. So we're really engaging the leg here and then shifting forward. Trying to keep that pulling motion of the front leg. Shifting forward, pushing back. So we're really pushing and pulling into the floor as we move. The next time you're forward, we're going to hold this. The left arm is going to come to the inside of that leg, so we're pushing arm against leg. The right arm touching the inside of your elbow. rotating up towards the ceiling. Sweeping that arm back down to touch the other one. Rotating up. And then push back. Relax your arms. Bring that left leg in. We'll switch over to the other side. Just going to move my mic here. So stepping out with the right foot. Back foot is flat on the floor. The top of the foot's on the floor. And we're shifting forward. And then shifting back. And this is where you're going to pay attention to your hip. If it feels like an awkward pinching that's happening in your hip, then that's when you play with the angle of your foot or your leg. Now we're bringing in a little bit more action. So pushing that foot into the floor and pulling it back. Next time we're forward, the right arm, the back side of your arm is pushing against your leg, leg pushing against your arm. Left arm touches the inside of your elbow and then sweeps up to the ceiling. Bring that arm down, touch the inside of your arm, sweep up. And arm down, and then sit back. Bring that right leg in so we're back on our knees. Back into table. And sit back in child's pose. Bringing your knees wider than you normally would. So both knees out to each side of the mat, so your chest is going to drop a little bit further towards the floor. Breathing deeply in, expanding your ribs as much as you can, and then exhaling very slowly out. One more time, big breath in. And exhaling out. Walking your hands back towards your legs. Coming to sit on your mat however you wish to get there. Going to move into cobbler's pose. So your knees are out to the sides, bottoms of the feet are together, but not flat feet together. You like almost like you're opening a book. It's the outside edges of your feet that are touching. So we're just holding here, settling into cobbler's pose to start. And that same hinging action that we did in forward fold, we're doing the same thing. So keeping the back straight, we're hinging at the hips, bringing your fingertips to the floor in front of you and just moving the chest forward. We're leading with the sternum, so we're not rounding down towards your feet. We're keeping the back straight and just a slight forward fold. Walking your hands back. We're going to cross the legs, but crossing opposite than you normally do. So the other leg will be in front. And you'll know it's not your usual cross if it feels a little bit awkward. So you can place your hands on your knees or on the floor. We're just doing gentle trunk rotations, going in whatever direction comes naturally. You can have your hands on your knees for support, or on the floor, like I said. We're just doing small circles or big circles. Your body will tell you what it's looking for and what feels good. And then changing direction. Just noticing if it feels a little bit different, moving in the opposite direction, anywhere in your back or hips or legs even, if there's any sticky spots or points of tension, just noticing, because it's very common to have differences when we do an exercise from one side to the other. And then holding still. Gonna take the left arm, reaching diagonally over the opposite knee. We're reaching as far as we can. So stretching out the back of the shoulder into the back of your arm. We're reaching as far as possible. Sweeping your arm up and over, back behind you, back behind your left hip. So we're just stretching through the upper back. It's a gentle twist here. It's not really a neck twist. So wherever you're looking, that's your choice. Sweeping that arm back up to the ceiling. We're reaching forward again, using the opposite hand for support. So we're reaching, stretching, and then lifting up and back behind you. Coming back to center, back to neutral. We'll do that same thing on the other side. So right arm, so reaching diagonally, reaching as far as you can over the opposite knee. You might even feel this stretch in the left hip, or in the right hip, sorry. Reaching arm up towards the ceiling, back behind you, holding here. Sweeping your arm up towards the ceiling. And in front of you, reaching. Maybe even reaching a little bit further than the first time. Or it might be the same. Seeing if it changes or not. Lifting up and back behind you. And then lifting that arm, coming back to center. Crossing your arms to hang on to opposite knees. Now we're rounding the back, tucking your chin, rounding as much as you need to. You can even lean down towards the floor. but we're gently pulling on your knees, spreading your shoulder blades as far apart as you can. And lifting back up. It's going to shift around and then roll down. We're coming down to lay on the mat. So knees are bent, feet are on the floor. We're going to stretch the left arm up along the floor, back behind you. Then bring it up, lifting the right knee. So left hand to right knee. We're pushing your hand into your knee and pushing your knee into your hand. Then reaching up with that arm back behind you. Right leg straightens, hovers on the floor. Then bringing knee back to your hand. Pushing your knee into your hand, hand into your knee. One more time, straight leg, straight arm. Reaching with both. Bending that knee, bringing it back up, pushing your hand into your knee. Opposite forces. And then lower that foot down, lower that arm. Reaching up overhead with the right hand, right arm. Bringing that hand to your left knee. Pushing hand into knee, knee into hand. Stretching both long. So left leg out, right arm out. Bringing them back into touch. Pushing hand into knee, knee into hand. One more time, stretching long. And then bringing them back together, pushing your knee into your hand. Relaxing that leg and that arm. So your arms are going to come out into a T shape, out to each side, palms down. So that's going to be our anchor on the floor as you lift both knees. So your shins are roughly parallel to the floor. And then we're just rocking the hips from side to side. And then letting both knees drop over to the left side. You can place a block or a pillow or a blanket, anything underneath your knees if you wish to support them. So your knees are over to the left side. The right arm is going to lift up towards the ceiling. You're turning to lie on your left hand, so both hands touch. And then sweep that arm up and over and back out to the side, back behind you. So we're just going to move back and forth, lifting that arm up and over to meet the left hand. Lifting that arm up, reaching back behind you. Only going as far as it's comfortable. And then holding here. Lifting your knees back up to center, up towards the ceiling, and then dropping over to the right side. Left hand, left arm sweeps up to the ceiling, over to touch the right hand, sweeps up and back behind you. Sweeping up towards the ceiling, touching the right hand, and then sweeping up and out to the side. Lifting your knees, back up to center. Wrapping your hands around both shins or your knees. We're just hugging our knees into our chest, lifting your forehead up towards your knees. They don't have to touch, we're just aiming for that. And then relaxing back down, we're moving into Shavasana. So getting as comfortable here on the floor as you can, so using whatever props, blankets, pillows, leg supports, whatever you usually use in Shavasana. Just letting your arms drop out to each side. Letting your legs relax, so both feet drop out to each side. Gentle pressure into the back of your head to lift your shoulders half an inch off the floor. And then let them settle back down. Just gently scanning from your toes, through your ankles, up through your knees, just seeing how your body feels. Did a lot of work throughout the class. So just checking in to see how you're feeling. Up through the hips, all the way through your back, up to your shoulders. Through your arms. And then just noticing every point of contact, so the entire back side of your body where you're making contact with the floor. Noticing the different temperatures, depending on what surface you're touching, if it's warm or cool. Hard or soft. Just taking a few minutes to bring our awareness to the breath. Just doing the same breathing exercise that we did at the beginning of the class. Just keeping your normal inhale, not changing anything, but changing the exhale slightly and just making it a little bit longer, a little bit deeper, without forcing. It's just a gentle exhale, but prolonging it just a little bit longer than you normally do. Now returning to your normal breathing pattern. Gently moving fingers and toes. Stretching long, reaching up overhead, pointing your toes. And then reaching to grab one knee and then the other, curling into a tight ball. And then rolling over to the side, using your arms to push you back up to sitting, keeping your eyes closed just for a moment longer. Bringing your hands together at heart center, so palms together, rubbing them really quickly together, building heat between your hands, and then placing them over your eyes. Then sliding your hands down to either side of your neck. Then placing one hand on top of the other on your chest. Feeling your chest rise and fall as you breathe in and breathe out. Gratitude to you. Thank you for joining me for this whole body workup class. I hope you enjoyed it and we will see you soon. Thank you.